Hello everyone. I have two things that I want to talk about today. One of them is just kind of my process for how I figure out a piece of clothing and how I figure out how to make it and if I want to make it. My process of making clothes and figuring out clothes and like looking at ready to wear clothes as if I were going to make them has really helped me wrap my head around that. So we're gonna do a couple things. One, I'm going to pick a couple of dresses that I would like to make and show you my process of looking at them, breaking them down, and kind of drawing out what the pattern's gonna look like. But then we're also just gonna chat a little bit about clothes and why they cost money and where that cost comes from. To start off, we're gonna take a look at this dress from The Mummy. It's kind of this nightgown slash dress. The nice thing, this dress is for auction on like a movie props website, which means I have a lot of detail shots to work with, and this does not usually happen. We have these sleeves, and then we have this very exaggerated neckline. A waistband like that. God, this looks funny. Something I've learned in my year of making clothes is that making clothes is hard. Sounds obvious, but a lot of people don't necessarily realize because there are so many decisions that go into absolutely every part of a garment. After a year of doing it pretty regularly, I think I'm pretty good at sewing, but I'm still definitely learning when it comes to figuring out patterns, fitting them to my body. And I would say that even though I've made a lot of clothes, not from patterns, I don't think I've ever really designed anything. Most of the time I'm just copying ready-to-wear things or, you know, slightly altering something that I already have. So this kind of leads me to the very basic point that the reason clothes cost as much as they do is people. There was always this idea that clothes should be cheaper if they were less material. And so one example of this was like shorts. I know a lot of people, including me, were like upset that you had to pay the same amount for shorts as you do for jeans. But if you think about the construction of pants, almost all of the effort goes into the top portion of the pants. The waistband, the pocket, the zipper, the grommets, all of that's at the top. The bottom is a couple of straight lines. So it is a very similar amount of work to make a pair of shorts as it is to make a pair of pants. And just because there's less fabric involved, that has such a small dent on the overall cost of making the item. There are also a lot of things that I think we assume are automated that aren't. Something that Cora Harrington talks about really well and pretty often. When we say that something is handmade, the implication is that other clothes are not handmade. Other clothes are made by machine. But the technology just like is not there. There are no clothes that are made by machine without people being involved in the process. And when you look at something, especially something that is a little closer to the couture side or the just like higher cost items, a lot of the time, a lot of details have very heavy involvement from the people making the garment. So the Lyrica Matoshi strawberry dress has a lot of hand details involved in making it. I think a lot of people don't necessarily realize that higher end clothing is almost always undervalued because you need to sell at an amount that people will pay for. If you look at the margins on something like that versus fast fashion, you're gonna see people either don't want to or can't pay for higher end clothing. So there's kind of this idea that clothes that are expensive are the result of like greed and capitalism, and clothes that are cheap are not, and that's kind of the opposite of the truth. In general, clothes that are really cheap tend to be clothes where the people making them get very, very little money. The areas where they're manufactured can have really big environmental issues because of the factories producing them. And overall, basically, what you're looking at is clothing where the cost of the item is not coming out of your pocket, it's coming out of the workers and the people who live in the areas around it. And so this is just kind of to say that is much more a product of, greed and capitalism than clothing costing. Okay, so the back of this is pretty simple. We just have 2 pieces. This is lace, I don't know if you can tell. And then we have this guy. This is clearly made out of some kind of like silky material, probably like a polyester type thing. I will be making it out of like a medium weight linen because it's the black fabric that I have on hand. And also I will wear it more. What I'm doing when I go through and do all of these things is essentially I am skipping the hardest parts of this process. Because what I'm doing is I get to take advantage of all of the problems that the costume designer faced when designing this garment. So I get to go in and say, all right, instead of figuring out what dart replacement is going to look better, I can see, well, they already did a pin tuck here and here, so that's going to be a little easier, and I can just do that. I have the very easy job of just essentially transcribing what I see and then trying to recreate it. And it's a lot of work for me as well. A lot of the skill and work that goes into making clothes is design work. It's making something over and over and over and over again. Wassel Clothing, which is a small brand that I really, really like. It's a very small brand with a very large size range. And each of those sizes has the same rigorous fit testing that goes into it. And a lot of fast fashion companies just kind of skip that step. So there are these default measurements, essentially, that different factories have that they can use when it comes to figuring out what measurements to cut their clothes to. Most fast fashion companies have some kind of general fit type for their straight sizes and then a different one for their plus sizes. You might be thinking, but people come in many sizes, especially plus size people. There are lots of different ways that clothes are gonna fit them. And you would be correct. Like that. That. Again, we have that kind of exaggerated line there. It looks like there's piping at the top, which I think would be cute. A cute detail, but I don't have any piping, so we'll see about that. 2 pin tucks. I think these are like 1/4 inch each. And I'm gonna say they're like 1 inch apart. Is that gathering or are those also tucks? Okay, I think these are also tucks. 1, 2, 3. All right, I think there are 3 tucks right there. The Closet Historian just made a really, really good video about darts and dart manipulation. So if you want to know how I'm going to be dealing with all of this, go ahead and check out that video. This is going to be the general shape of it. I need to add in an extra 1/2 inch for each tuck. Actually, no, I don't need to add in anything because the tucks are just taking place of the dart. Sick. So presumably I can just draw out this shape to the size that I normally wear. And then this is going to be longer on this side than it is on that side. And so I'm going to need to match this up. And it'll go kind of like, yeah, okay. And this is just going to be a 4-panel skirt. So I recently did a couple of projects where I was making my own patterns, stealing from ready-to-wear designs. But one of them is a very, very basic design. So I made this like bodycon denim dress, and as you can see, there are no seams in the middle. This thing was so fucking hard to draft. I had to make like 3 mock-ups for what I thought was gonna be a really, really simple dress. And that's after having traced those pieces from other patterns I had already used and a garment I already owned. So even though I was stepping in late in the game, I was still making 3 mock-ups and then making the final dress. And then another one I made, the mock-up went really well, but then I had all of these fit issues that I was trying to figure out. And so the process ended up taking way longer than I expected there as well. So the process of making these clothes wasn't just, all right, how do I make this look like this? It was then also, how do I make it fit? How do I make it lay the way I want it to? All of those different things. And when you get into a company, you're doing many, many mock-ups, probably for every size that you're selling. When you look at a small brand like Tuesday of California, Wassel Clothing, that has to be factored in to the price of the garment. Fast fashion companies tend to actually just find designs from runways or small designers and essentially just like copy them and put them on the floor, and they use these very standard measurements. Again, one of the things that can lead to the higher price of indie clothes, especially because if you're doing a run of a couple hundred of something, then the cost per item that you have to add due to all of the hours you spent designing is gonna be higher. I'll do one more just to show you guys what it looks like when you're trying to do like a really simple design, because I think simple design's a lot harder. It's a much, wow, I did not realize you could see all of this shit. What if I just reshot this whole video so that wasn't in the background? So this is a great example of a dress that looks very simple. In construction, it is, but that means a lot of work has to go in up front to make sure it fits perfectly. If you have a piece of clothing with a ton of seams or a ton of stretch, it's gonna be easier to make it fit more people. If I am making a garment and it is kind of like 4 pieces in the front, 2 on the bottom, 2 on the top, it's really easy for me to make alterations to the fit of that because I can just do them in one of those seams and it'll be hidden. But if I'm doing something where it's 1 piece for the whole front, then I have to do it entirely right on that first try. Otherwise, the whole thing's not gonna fit and I'll have to do it over. So this dress is 3 pieces. So they have 1 dart, and that is right here. So they have the dart pointing into the apex, and then everything other than that is just going to be controlled by the silhouette of the side of the dress. Crazy. You can't necessarily look at a piece of clothing and go, this is simple, so this one should be cheaper. If you're looking for what makes an item really expensive beyond just labor and design and the size of the studio, you're going to be looking at how much hand work is there in the garment. Cutouts and hardware embellishments, those would probably also have to be done one at a time. A lot of draping is not only hand done, but has to be individually done on a dress form for every single dress or whatever that's put out. But then there are things where it's like, this dress has a lot of volume, and maybe that doesn't mean that it's gonna cost more because it was made on such a large scale. The things that contribute to the cost of clothes have a lot more to do with the scale that they're being manufactured at and the amount of labor that goes into making them. This has been very rambling. I hope this was kind of helpful. Let me know if you want to see me make either of these things. I mean, I will be making both of them probably. But if you want to see it, I can make a video of it. As always, let me know if there's anything you want me to talk about, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.